going, YouTube? Welcome to Ohio, but not just any part of Ohio. Welcome to State Route 7 in southeastern Ohio. And the glorious view here of the Ohio River. It's an absolutely spectacular amount of scenery that I honestly had no idea existed in this part of the country. And I knew that we had some pretty valleys all across the Midwest and the eastern states, thanks to the very large river systems that we are very fortunate to have in the U.S. But this scenery reminds me so much of Oregon and Washington State, because I was out in Olympia, the Olympia, Washington area last year. I think it was 2020, spring of 23, I believe, before I actually completed the process to file for my authority and get myself active as my own motor carrier. I was still leased on with another carrier at that time, and I was driving through the Columbia River, I think it was. I probably got that wrong, but it was some river, and it was just an absolutely astonishing valley that I was driving along next to the riverbank. And to find something very similar in Ohio is an extremely pleasant surprise. If you're from Ohio, you probably understood this is already here, which is great. I mean, it's your state. You should know these things, at least in theory. There are plenty of unknown gems in Illinois for me, so I really can't hold it against you if you don't know your state in and out, because I don't know my state in and out. But finding these little nuggets of incredible beauty, even though this two-lane blacktop isn't exactly what you would call something to write home about or even make a video about, the scenery that is around me is extraordinary. And as soon as I have an opportunity to really have a look at the camera here, I'll take it off the mount and show you, but safety first, and I gotta make sure I don't smash into this fellow ahead of me or take out any property to my left or right, because that would make for a very poor day rather swiftly. And I haven't come all this way to have a bad day. So, but of course, I'm sure with my luck, I'm about to pivot away from the river valley and head onward into, shall we say, a more routine part of Ohio, a more routine set of scenery. But even so, this is still one of those areas that I love finding when I'm traveling the various states. When I find these little pockets of just tranquility, or at least what I would consider to be a very tranquil area, it always makes me happy, and it always makes me value the ability that I have to travel and be paid to travel in a new way, or at least it reminds me of why I enjoy doing this job, why I enjoy being an owner-operator, why I enjoy having the flexibility to pick and choose where I go and have opportunities to experience this country in ways I previously have not. And yes, it definitely does appear that I'm going to be angling away from the river, which is unfortunate, but even so, there's these hills, and I guess you call them small mountains, still quite beautiful. And it's just, yeah, it's parts of this look, kind of podunk and run down. You got some redneck features here and there, but every state has a little bit of that. Doesn't matter which state it is. I mean, I found some white trash madness in central New York a couple of years back, which kind of surprised me. I didn't figure New York to have that kind of white trash nonsense, but I found it. you think these things are only concentrated, of course, in, the southeastern U.S. or, the so-called southern states, but, you can get little pockets of rundown, rural lifestyle everywhere in the U.S. I suppose I really shouldn't ramble on about it, but it's just one of those things while I'm waiting for this light to go green, just kind of felt the urge to mention. But yeah, this is unbelievably gorgeous territory. And I say that because I've never seen it before. Like, I've been all over, not all over, but I've been over a good portion of West Virginia. I've been over a good portion of Virginia. Been over a good portion of Maryland. Been over a lot of Pennsylvania. A good portion of New York State. A lot of Ohio. But somehow, up until this point, I'd never been to this area, this stretch of road in Ohio. So it's just one of those happy accidents, those wonderful surprises, those unexpected experiences that, it's just, it gives me one more reason to be proud of this nation. Because despite what all the greenies and the lefties might want to say, oh, we're ruining the environment, we're going to kill us all with, oh, this terrible this and this terrible that. It's like, no, I'm seeing vibrant green everywhere. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of these folks on this stretch of road would love to have 2 or 3 or 4 or 8 times their current income. But people here are getting it done. I mean, this is coal country. There's a nuclear power plant over here. I'm about to drive by. That'll be fun to see. I haven't been close to a nuclear plant in a long while. They're always neat to see them, quote unquote, up close. For some folks, oh yeah, it's a feature of the environment. Other folks, it's their job. Other folks, it's like they've seen it so many times, they just, it's nothing special. Which that's perfectly fine. I mean, if I drove up and down this stretch of road every day, I'd probably become jaded to it myself. But because this is not my usual stomping ground, I get to enjoy it quite literally for the first time. And I very much am enjoying it. And I love this, how they carved this and how nature is just reasserting itself over the rock and the dirt of the hillside. It's just, yeah, some of it probably is invasive species, but without knowing what I'm looking at, it just looks pretty. It looks very natural. I'm sure some of it needs to be burned away because it doesn't belong here, but the vibrance, unbelievable vibrance of this scenery could only be improved if there were just, scads of wildflowers just all over the place. But even without that, it's still incredibly gorgeous. Now that I'm coming up to a bend here, so I can get a look at this nuclear plant without running off the road. There doesn't appear to be a gap in the trees enough for me to justify taking the phone off of the mountain to have a look. It's one of those areas where a deer could end up across my path real quick, and that would really ruin my day. But yeah, I haven't driven this close to a nuclear power plant, and I couldn't tell you how long it's been. So this is really cool to see. And they are making some power, I tell you what. Go to it, boys. Anyway, so we're back along the river after going through that little hamlet. Cruising along. People think Ohio is boring. It's dull. It's flat. It's lifeless. It doesn't have any vibrance. There's no vitality to it. And when your reputation is a state built essentially around agriculture and industry and not around your natural features, it's very easy to fall into that trap and stay there. Until you start seeing more of the country of the state, to start seeing more of the land, start seeing more of what it has to offer, you realize Ohio is an incredibly beautiful crossing there, those grades, into and out of Kentucky, across the Ohio River, those are a barrel of suck as well, especially when there's high traffic. It's just the worst. But when you have an opportunity to look around and you can see past the urban sprawl at ground level and look back and see it from an elevated position on the top of the hill, looking down across the city sprawl, looking down across the neighborhoods, looking at the river itself and the banks, far enough away where you can't see the areas that don't look so great. It's strikingly beautiful. And I was just in Pittsburgh this morning, and I had never been into Pittsburgh proper, and that was my first time this morning. I got a couple of pictures I might post on my Instagram later on, but coming in on 376 there, that was incredible because the river flowing right past Pittsburgh itself, I don't even know the name of it, I should know it, but I just don't. Oh, the Allegheny River, that's right, the Allegheny River. You can see, I think it was what used to be called Heinz Field. I don't think I saw the baseball field when the Pirates played. I think it was the Allegheny River. Could be wrong, I don't know. That was incredibly gorgeous as well, and it was, unfortunately, my experience was immediately marred when I was driving along. I looked over to my left on the river, and I saw that there was a huge homeless camp under one of the bridges there, and I was like, oh, for God's sake, people, come on. But alas, no wonderful vista is without its faults or flaws. That is just life, at least for the time being. One of these days, perhaps, that will not be, shall we say, a routine experience when you're looking at something gorgeous for the first time. In that capacity, you won't see something that detracts from it. But yeah, I mean, again, Ohio there's a lot of hidden gems in this state. It's a lot prettier than it lets on. But with that being said, YouTube, thank you so much for watching and enjoying this little scenic tour, as it were, on State Route 7. And I will see you down the road.